What is up, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Josh, and today we're going to be working on the wheel swap for our 2021 Surron Light Bee. Now, before we jump into installing the wheels, talking about the wheels we went with and why, I want to thank the sponsor of this video, which is myself, at Electrix Moto Co. I will leave a link in the description where you can not only follow the YouTube channel for Electrix Moto, you can follow the Instagram for Electrix Moto, and the e-com store should be up within 7 days of this video, depending upon when you see it. There will be a link that you can go and you can shop everything e-moto that you're interested in for your Sur-Ron on that site. And as a bonus, you can save 10% by using the code ROAM at checkout. So before we jump into the installation and getting everything complete today, let's talk about the wheels we went with, the tires that we have, and why. If you guys are familiar with our Surron Ultra Bee build that we're doing, if not, I will put the link in one of the corners so you can go check out our Ultra Bee build. I'm going back to the KKE wheels. Now this time they are going to be in a 16-19 setup because in my personal opinion, I believe that the Surron Light Bee is best suited for a 16-19 setup. I was considering an 18-21, but that just takes so much power away from an already underpowered bike. And to be fully transparent, like I don't really ride this bike. This is the bike that my wife rides. This is the bike that my son rides. I ride the Ultra Bee pretty much all the time. I haven't been on this bike in quite a while, but I will be getting on this bike and we'll do some tests out back on our circle track. We have a small enduro section, some ruts that we built, as well as a couple of jumps, and we will test that bike after we get everything put on today. But I did go with the KKE purple hubs, purple nipples, black spokes, you know, that whole deal with the black wheel. And I went with a Dunlop MX-34 on this, and I did that in a 90-116 for the back and a 90-119 for the front. So the Dunlop tire is definitely more of a motocross style tire, probably not the best trail tire, but I have the MX-53s on my Surron Ultra Bee, and it does really, really well on the trail. It also performs pretty good on the track, so I'm happy with this tire, and it's really the most accessible and easy to get your hands on tire. I will put links in the description for all of this stuff if you guys are interested in purchasing these specific products for your bike. So with all that being said, I'm going to hop over. We're going to take this rear wheel off. We're going to start at the back, and then we're going to put the new tire on, get the sprocket put on, get the rotors and all of that mounted up, and then we will move through and get this thing done. And it should take us probably about 20 minutes, and it will not be a 20-minute video, but that will lead us into going outside and ripping this thing around and seeing how it performs with a whole new setup of tires. All right, so as you guys saw, getting that thing off was kind of a pain because you have that floating caliper, but now we got the tire off. So we're going to be reusing the same disc for the rear as well as the same sprocket. I do have a new sprocket on order. I also have brake pads on order that we're going to have to take all this off and redo it again. But we're going to take off all these bolts. We're going to get the rotor off. We're going to take off the same bolts over here. We're going to get the disc brake off. We're going to take these and remember which side is which, because KKE does send you a new set of spacers for their wheels. We'll grease everything up really good before we get it put back in, but now we're just going to focus on getting these things off. And I'm going to grab my paper that tells me all the torque specs for these so we know exactly how tight to put them back on the new wheel. Okay, so I'm trying to bring you as close as I can on this. Now, this bike is from 2021. This is one of the original Light Bees that ever was released. And as you can tell, you'll see some metal shavings, you'll see some dirt and gunk that's just bound up in there. These things are pretty well seized. So I'm gonna have to go ahead and clean all this out prior to putting everything back together, but it's just something to keep in mind. If you're cleaning your bike, or if you're not cleaning your bike and you're not taking care of it pretty much at all, like we did with this one, when you go to start taking things apart, you can expect stuff like this to happen. So just be ginger with it. Give it a little bit of heat to make things easier. And then now we got them loose. We're going to clean them up, and then we'll start installing on the other wheel. All right, so on the disc side, I would caution you guys to be a little bit more careful of these bolts, because they are a Torx bolt. A Torx head, and it's a T30 that you use for these. But the problem with Torx is it's very sharp, and if you put this on an impact and you blow through that bolt, you will strip that head out. So I'm not going to be using an impact or any type of power tool on this side. I'm just going to heat all these up really good and start working my way around diagonally, basically hopping across. As I loosen this one up, I'll try to loosen this one, because it just starts relieving pressure evenly. That way one doesn't get bound up when we try to take this off. All right, let's find that other bolt that we dropped in here. And what I do is I always put a trash bag down here, so if anything falls, I don't have to search to the bottom of the trash can to try to find it. It usually catches it right there. So before we start reassembling, we're going to take a look at just how tight this is going to be. Now, obviously these tires are much bigger, so we are going to have a very minimal amount of clearance on the chain, and we're going to have to move our axle blocks back pretty far to keep this from hitting the plastic, which is fine, not a big deal. I'm not upgrading the chain yet. This is still the original chain. I will put a Renthal 420 on it at some point soon, but we are going to be pretty close to that chain. So these spacers are going to come in handy that KKE sends with your hubs and your wheels. So we'll start putting everything back on, get the spacers on, and then we can throw this on the bike and see how everything lines up, or if it lines up. All right, so before we get going, we'll just put a little bit of blue Loctite on here. Get this ready to go. That way we don't have any issues with these backing out, once we're torquing the bike. All right, so the sprocket side is 10 Newton meters. So on your torque wrench, there will probably be a foot-pound side and a Newton meter side. This is 10 Newton meters. So I'm gonna set this, because I don't have 10. It only goes down to about 12. I'm gonna have to over torque these just a bit, but it'll be okay. All right, so for the bolts on the sprocket side, I just put some brake part cleaner in there, and I just kind of let them soak for a little bit. Now that they've been soaking long enough, I'll take them out, wipe them all down, clean them up, maybe hit them with a wire brush if I need, and then I'll start reinstalling all of these back onto the sprocket side. Now your sprocket side is 25 Newton meters. So again, your torque wrench on the opposite side of foot-pound should have Newton meters. Crank this thing up to 25 Newton meters, and then just go in your pattern as if you were basically putting a tire back on a car. Now, before we get all crazy and start mounting, I definitely got ahead of myself there. I was super excited. I use this Maxima waterproof grease. I am going to grease these bad boys up a little bit. That way, I know that when they're getting corroded and we're running through mud and dirt, I remember that I put grease on here. That will help their lifespan tremendously. And we're going to do the same thing on the sprocket side. All right, so the easiest way that I know how to do this, if you know a better way, put it in the comments, because I'm always down to learn. So you have a little dish in your caliper, and you have a matching spacer on your wheel. You need to get that spacer into the dish, and then this has a notch at the bottom which allows it to float up and down, forward and back. That's why it's called a floating caliper. So you can get that on there, and that's how you install this. Now, it's just easier to get this all the way in here. Get your rotor on your caliper, get that installed on your dish, and then bring this down and go up on your notch. Grab your axle block. Now, I just greased this the other day because I took some things apart. So I was working on the bike. So it's already pretty well greased. And I'm going to get this on here. I'll probably go back and grease it just for the sake of time. All right, there we go. Now we got everything installed. The axle bolt is through, and now it's just a matter of finding the right spot here. I have to get my chain on the sprocket now, so I'm going to need to push this as far forward as I can in order to make that happen, and make sure that we don't have any clearance issues on the chain side. All right, so that went a little bit better than I planned, I'm going to be honest. So now what we're going to do is we got to loosen these spacer bolts, I guess is what you could call them, so we can get this tire shoved all the way up. Now the back side is a 10mm, and when you go to put them on, you are going to need two 10mm wrenches to make this work for yourself. But we just want to get these twisted down as far as we can, so then we can push the front wheel up as far as we can. That way we can attach the chain to the sprocket. And then it's just about trying to get the perfect alignment for your rear tire, so your rear tire isn't going like this. It's actually a really easy process, but let's just get this done first, and then we can move on to trying to get everything else situated here. All right, so as you can see, you got a lot more play in this now. So I can push this all the way forward. Probably do it from this side, honestly, maybe not. Wrap my hand in there and grab my chain, and then what I like to do is just kind of put the chain on top of the sprocket and roll the wheel, and it'll kind of catch the teeth, or at least in theory. It'd definitely be a lot easier doing it from the other side. But here we are. All right, there we go. So now you can just toss it on the teeth and start rolling it. The motor will start to turn, and now you're connected. In order to achieve this goal, you're going to want to take this chain guard off, because it is going to make finding out the tension in your chain impossible. I don't even know why this is on there. I like to take these off and pretty much leave them off for the most part, because any type of work you want to do chain related, you're going to have to take it off, and it's a huge pain to do so. There's another bolt up here that holds the other side on. It's right there. You're going to have to take that off if you want to take the whole chain guard off. But this will do for now. So we'll just get this up out of the way just for the point of getting our chain situated. Now it might fall back down actually, so this might blow up in my face, but now that I have, so generally, like that's probably, it's hard because you have a lot of droop going on down here, but I want to kind of go about right there. So if I tighten this up, that's kind of where I want to be. I may have to make some minor adjustments, but what we'll do is we'll start backing this one off. I hope that's going the right way. Yeah. So we'll back this one off, grab your 10mm if you need it, and just start making your corrections little by little until you get the proper chain tension. Okay. And then you just do the same thing on the other side. Then you can move on. Okay, so this is what I mean. I'm not sure, the camera's kind of focusing right here, but there is about a 1/4 inch of space on the tire. So we are barely clearing that chain, and which is good, that's fine, it's not a big deal, but just something to note. And if you look, this tire's still wobbly because I haven't tightened the axle bolt, but that is the biggest tire you're going to be able to fit on your Surron Light Bee. If you choose to go with this setup, and if you choose this tire, there may be other tires that you could use that are a bigger, fatter tire, but I'll show you a comparison to this tire versus the factory tire here in a moment. All right, so this is the factory rear right here and the Dunlop rear. This is going to make an absolute massive difference. It is going to slow the bike down slightly, but I mean, just look at the tread. Look at it's. These tires are great if you're just ripping around the backyard, which we did for a long time, but once you start really riding trails, you're going to need to upgrade to something like this. It doesn't have to be this one. If you want it, I'll put the link in the description, but this is just a comparison so you know what you're running now or what you got stock versus what you could be running on the back tire. All right, so your back axle Let me grab the bolt here, is 140 Newton meters. So your little torque wrench is not going to be enough to make that happen. You are going to need something big. I would use the impact here, but it's just you don't know what you're getting, and I'd like to be as close to what I'm supposed to be as possible here. So the back wheel's done, and now we're going to move on to the front. Now, obviously, this thing likes to move around on you. I put a bungee cord to try to hold this down. I need to get a new stand that holds the pegs. But so what we want to do is we want to undo both, just relieve pressure on both of these pinch bolts before we start taking this axle nut out. And then we'll take this front tire off, remove the disc brake, put it on the new wheel, slide it back in, put it all back together. This process is so much shorter and so much easier. So I'm just going to kind of run through this real quick. We'll flop over the disc brake, and then we'll put this thing right back on. All right, so I use the impact to just kind of tighten these up really quick. The front disc is 10 Newton meters. So all you need to do is get your torque wrench back out, get everything tightened back up to 10 Newton meters, and this bad boy is ready to throw back on the bike. Okay, so your forks are all put back together finally. You can screw these two bad boys back on, and then you can tighten everything down to the proper torque specs, and your wheel swap, which should have been a lot easier, is now complete. All right, so right here you want to go to 60 Newton meters. You can just hold one side, tighten the other. It doesn't really matter, but I'll try to get this down here. Hopefully that's still in frame. There you go. 60 Newton meters there. And your front pinch bolts go back to 12 Newton meters. So just like the back, you see the difference in the tires immediately. Just the meat of the knobs. It's a taller tire, and it kind of takes the Sur-Ron from sitting flat, and it puts it back a little bit. You have a smaller back wheel and a bigger front wheel, so it takes away that uneven nature that these bikes come with, like right out of the box, which makes a huge difference in rideability and just being able to go over bumps, and you kind of stay over your handlebars but not flipping over your handlebars. But this tire was getting destroyed. It is the original tire. It held up for a long time, but this is going to make all the difference in the world, and it is no wonder why going to a true Moto tire really can make all the difference on your Sur-Ron. Okay, so I know today we said we were going to go out and take the Sur-Ron and rip it around the circle track and go over some jumps and some enduro stuff that we have in our backyard. But I should know by now that install videos take significantly longer. No matter how many times you've done something, it never goes right, especially working by yourself. But it's really hard to work with somebody else that doesn't understand being on camera and that they can't say F this and F that every time something goes wrong. So you kind of have to like compose yourself. But the Surron Light Bee has the 16 to 19 KKE wheels, and it looks freaking great. It's just a better all-around tire, a better all-around setup. It makes this bike far more nimble. And in my opinion, the Light Bee is like the perfect single track style bike. It's not great for guys my size. I'm 5'10", 175. It's not a great bike for me to be at the track with, but tight single tracks where maybe even like mountain bike style stuff. I know if you've watched any of my videos, you've heard me say that. That is the perfect setup for this bike. I don't ride this bike very often, but today I am going to go test it out real quick, and then I'll bring it back. The next video, I will take this bike out and hit the enduro section. We'll go through the circle track. We'll put some ruts in. I'll prep the track so we can really see what kind of difference this makes. I'll probably put Cohen on the bike because he rides it more than I do, so he'll have a better understanding of how it's functioning versus how it was functioning. Okay, so if you guys enjoyed the video, share it with somebody, subscribe to the channel. Also, subscribe to Electrix Moto YouTube channel. Follow Electrix Moto on Instagram. You can follow me on Instagram, all of that good stuff. And I will see you on the next one.